Stacey Abrams is the new but her emails. Joining me now, Texas Congressman Joaquin Castro and LaTosha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter, who joins us from the road this morning from Jackson, Mississippi. Congressman, I want to turn to you on this because I am so frustrated. Republican state legislatures have introduced over 200 bills in 41 states across this country. I got to say, the Joe Manchin compromise, again, sounds a bit like weak sauce to me. I'm curious, as a member of Congress, where are you on this?
Well, look, I'm for H.R. 1 and H.R. 4, but it was clear that Joe Manchin had gotten to a place where it didn't look like he was, not only was he not going to do away with the filibuster to enact voting rights, he wasn't even supporting the bills. And so when he finally started negotiating and talking, that's a promising sign. Although you're right, there aren't some of the things that we would like to see in his compromise proposal. I think Stacey Abrams supported it because it does represent progress. But then for the Republicans to come forward and say, we're not going to vote basically for anything. We're not going to support the compromise. We're not going to vote for anything. It's clear what we have to do. We have to be willing to put aside the filibuster in order to protect our democracy and pass voting rights legislation. Even if you don't put aside the filibuster for health care, for immigration, for education, for transportation and infrastructure, you have to be able to do it to protect our democracy and our voting rights.
All right, LaTosha, I want to talk to you about this because you tweeted out your frustration about the compromise. And just for a bit of history, on this very day, on June 19th, in 1964, the Civil Rights Act was approved by the Senate in a 73-27 vote after surviving a lengthy filibuster. The filibuster has always been a problem. Where are you on this compromise? Because as you know, in Georgia, they just purged over 100,000 voters from the polls. Raffensperger literally named Stacey Abrams in his statement. You just heard her become the face of this new Republican effort. What do you want to see from Democrats to help stop these draconian efforts to keep us from the ballot box?
When you hear the statements, one, happy Juneteenth, but when you hear the statements, what you know is that they have no real intention to pass anything, that at best they want to be obstructionists. And because of that, we absolutely have to kill the filibuster. There's no way around it. It would be no version of that bill that the Republicans would actually support. They haven't even presented anything that really would deal with the voter suppression. Why? Because they're leading voter suppression. I think that what we have to do is kill the filibuster, but we also have to pass H.R. 1 and H.R. 4. We need, if anything, if we saw what happened in Georgia yesterday, now in the midst of this, 100,000 voters are getting ready to be dropped from the voting rolls. That's why we need the For the People Act. We need the John Lewis Voter Advancement Act. There's no way around it, and that's why we're riding out, because we're riding out for voting rights. We're going to be diligent in making sure that we get H.R. 1 and H.R. 4.
I see you riding out. I see that big, beautiful bus behind you. I love to see it. Congressman, I want to talk to you because I think when we talk about the filibuster and talk about what the situation we're in now, it's hard to explain the consequence. So given that there aren't even 50 Democrats to support voter legislation or voter protection legislation right now, there's no Republican support to help. Midterms are next year. Given where we are, do you think Democrats will be able to hold the House and the Senate come midterms? And how confident are you that Republicans will not kill the filibuster day one should they take power of the legislative branch of government?
Well, let me answer the last part of your question first. I think when they get power again, they're going to do away with the filibuster. Mitch McConnell has demonstrated that he's willing to do just about anything in the name of power and preserving the power for Republicans. In terms of our chances in 2022, I feel good because Republicans are in such disarray and because Donald Trump owns the Republican Party. And the ticket of admission to the Republican Party at this point and success in the Republican primary is to be crazy, really, to support legislation and ideas that are just far right and out there, consistent with Donald Trump's policies. Now, we are facing a historical headwind. Ordinarily, with a few exceptions, the president's party takes a hit in the midterms. So we are going up against history in a sense. But I feel confident because I know that we're going to have strong candidates. And also, we're actually trying to get things done. And I think the American people appreciate that. And the Republicans are in disarray.
Yeah, I hear you. I just think leapfrogging over all of these challenges that they're putting in the way of the ballot box, just harm the chances for Democrats. So, LaTosha, in Georgia, they're literally changing the game. The election boards, the proposal they're introducing is election boards. You can kick people off. They're trying to kick all the Democrats off, people of color off the board. They're trying to structure an all-white group of officials to help control the elections, and it's really scary. And obviously we know what's happening in Texas as well. I'm just curious because you're the person on the front lines. You're the person literally riding out right now all across this country. People at home watching right now, what can they do? What are we supposed to do with all this frustration, this hopelessness? How do we fight these efforts at the ground level?
This is a time that Americans, we have to rise up. This is a time that we have to actually do what the Constitution says. It says we the people. It doesn't say we the party. It doesn't even say we bipartisanship. It says we the people. And so we have to organize ourselves, just like we saw in 2018 when that election, quite frankly, was stolen. The outcome was stolen in Georgia. What did we do? We took that as an opportunity to organize and engage more people in the process. The only way that I think we're going to be able to stop them is people are going to have to stand up and stop them. And quite frankly, I think that there are more people in this country that are black, white, Latino, indigenous, Asian Americans that want to see our country move forward, not move backwards. And so what we have to do is organize. What is happening in Georgia is only few for us to actually come harder. We're resilient. We are resourceful people. We're going to organize ourselves, put pressure, and we're going to take folks out that have been standing in the way and supporting voter suppression, and we're going to put people in that align with the values that are in the Constitution of this nation.
I mean, that seems like the solution, right? Like, you have to make Sinema and Manchin irrelevant, so to speak. Like, all the Democratic principles can't hang on them. I thought it was interesting. Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, was on the Hill. She had this luncheon with the senators, and Kristen Sinema was the only Democratic senator who didn't show up. Interesting, given that there are no black women in the Senate. Congressman, let me ask you, I want to switch gears a little bit because we're running out of time. I'm just curious your thoughts, because there's a lot happening in Texas. Number one, this bill that Abbott is going to sign into law where you can just carry a gun without a license, without training, without a background check. And two, the rumor that Matthew McConaughey might be running for governor. Given everything happening in Texas with the voter legislation, voter restriction, et cetera, where are you on a possible Matthew McConaughey as governor?
Well, I've never had the chance to meet Matthew McConaughey. I've appreciated his work on film and television, but I haven't heard much about his political ideas, and he hasn't been clear about which political party he's part of, if either one, or he's an independent. And so I guess the jury is still out. I just don't know what he's going to do. But it is clear that Texas politics is changing, and that's why Greg Abbott and the Republican legislature are basically engaging in a point-shaving contest with voter suppression, where they're trying to hold off the future from arriving. And that's what we see with all this voter suppression legislation. And that said, they're doing that even as they move further to the right, and even after in El Paso, where a madman killed 23 people because he thought they were Hispanic invaders to Texas. Greg Abbott promised the people of Texas that he would make it harder for reckless people to get guns, and he just made it easier for them to do that.
Right. All right. Unfortunately, we have to leave it right there. Congressman, you are my favorite Castro, but don't tell Julian I said that. And as for you, LaTosha, I'm happy to see you riding out. And for everybody sitting at home saying, if I were alive during the civil rights movement, I would have fill in the blank. Now is your time to do that. You can find LaTosha online to see how you can support her work. Coming up, it's been